Condition of the congressman and the others who were wounded this morning. Welcome to the second hour of Happening Now. I'm John Scott.
And I'm Heather Childers. All of this began, the gunfire rang out just after 7 a.m. this morning at the ballpark where Republican lawmakers had gathered to practice for their charity baseball game, which will go on as scheduled. And the good news, it appears that the victims will all survive. Among the injured, Congressman Scalise, who underwent surgery for a gunshot wound to the hip. Also injured a congressional staffer and 2 Capitol police officers. Lawmakers, aides, and others all scrambled for their lives, and Capitol police officers sprang into action.
I was the first out to Steve, and then Brad, another member from Ohio, who's a physician, came out, and we applied pressure on the wound.
And he seems okay to you?
Yeah, he was coherent the whole time, but boy, he laid out there for at least 10 minutes alone in the field. We couldn't get to him while there were shots. The gunman was over by the third base dugout with a clear view of the field and everybody on it.
The suspect, James Hodgkinson of Illinois, has now died of his injuries. We have live Fox team coverage. John Roberts is at the White House, where President Trump addressed the shooting a short time ago and has altered his plans for the day. But we begin with Garrett Tenney live in Alexandria, just across the Potomac from D.C. at the field where the shooting took place. Garrett.
Yeah, and John, over this last hour, we began to learn some more details of the shooter, 66-year-old James Hodgkinson. And we've learned that he was from southern Illinois, near the town of Bellsville. And it appears that he was politically active. His hometown paper, the Bellsville News-Democrat, reports that Hodgkinson has written a number of letters to the editor. And in those letters, he often railed against Republicans, their tax policies, and called for them to be voted out of office altogether. We've also learned that he was a volunteer for the Bernie Sanders campaign. And this past hour on the Senate floor, senators condemned the shooter's actions. Take a listen.
I am sickened by this despicable act, and let me be as clear as I can be. Violence of any kind is unacceptable in our society, and I condemn this action in the strongest possible terms. Real change can only come about through nonviolent action, and anything else runs counter to our most deeply held American values.
Now, the FBI has taken over this investigation, and at the most recent press conference, they said that it is still too early for them to have a motive. But earlier today, several congressmen who were here at the baseball field said as they were leaving, Hodgkinson came up to them and asked them, are those players Democrats or Republicans?
Based on the question he asked me, I would make that assumption, because he asked me if this team was the Republican or Democrat team practicing. I responded that it was a Republican team practicing, and he proceeded to shoot Republicans. You take that for what it's worth.
And again, just to stress, though, law enforcement officials have said they do not have a motive at this time and are not ready to say that he was targeting specifically Republican congressmen there, though that's what the congressmen at least say they feel like at this point. Now, updates on the 4 individuals who were shot apart from the shooter. House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, he is in surgery after being shot in the hip, and the 2 officers who were part of a security detail, which really their heroic actions prevented this from becoming a massacre. They are both being treated at the hospital as well. One of them was shot in the foot. The other was hit with bullet fragments. And the 4th individual was a staffer of Congressman Roger Williams. Zachary Barth is his name, and he was also shot, and we're told that he is currently receiving treatment. Now, just a couple of hours ago on Capitol Hill, there was a standing ovation when the announcement was made that the annual congressional baseball game, the charity game that they were practicing for here today, that tomorrow it will go on as scheduled. John?
Garrett Tenney at the park where the shooting took place there this morning. Garrett, thank you.
Well, just a short time ago, we heard from President Trump delivering a statement on today's shooting, supporting Congressman Steve Scalise and his family and the others injured this morning, and praising the heroic Capitol Police. We've just mentioned them. They're worth mentioning over and over today. They saved countless lives. The president was supposed to headline a workforce development event at the Labor Department today. That has been canceled in light of the shooting. John Roberts is live for us from the White House with more. John?
A very heartfelt statement, I think it's safe to say, from the president this morning, sending his prayers to those who are injured. And we understand that one of the people who was injured is in fairly grave condition. We haven't had much of an update, just gleaning reports that are coming in, floating around here in Washington. But the president offering his prayers to those who were injured, and also, as you mentioned, enormous praise for the two Capitol Police officers who are on Congressman Steve Scalise's detail. Senator Rand Paul said this morning on Fox News that had those officers not been there, this morning's incident could have easily turned into a massacre because of the way that they were trapped inside the ball field by the fencing there, and the gunman seemed to know that as well. The president was saying in his remarks just a short time ago from the diplomatic reception room that everyone who was on that field this morning shared a common bond. Here's the president.
Everyone on that field is a public servant. Our courageous police, our congressional aides who work so tirelessly behind the scenes with enormous devotion, and our dedicated members of Congress who represent our people. We may have our differences, but we do well in times like these to remember that everyone who serves in our nation's capital is here because, above all, they love our country.
Some members of Congress who are on that field this morning have suggested that the increasing vitriolic nature of the rhetorics of politics may have had something to do with inspiring the gunman to go out there today and start shooting Republicans. Congressman Rodney Davis of Illinois suggested that the language that really has permeated our culture these days is nothing more than political rhetorical terrorism. The president, in his remarks today, did not allude to the atmosphere of political rhetoric, but he did urge unity. Here again is the president.
We can all agree that we are blessed to be Americans, that our children deserve to grow up in a nation of safety and peace, and that we are strongest when we are unified and when we work together for the common good.
The president spent much of the morning working the phones. He put in telephone calls to Congressman Scalise's wife, as well as Congressman Scalise's chief of staff, and others, including the leadership in the Senate. The president did, as you mentioned, cancel an event that he had set for this afternoon at the Labor Department. He was set to unveil an apprenticeship program as part of his Workplace Development Week. We don't know when that will be rescheduled, but the president is expected tomorrow to resume his regular schedule. Heather?
Yeah, what a drastically different day there on Capitol Hill today. John Roberts, thank you.
Thank you.
So as we saw moments ago, lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are thinking about their colleagues during this ordeal. Several congressmen, senators, and their aides gathered at that ballpark suddenly found themselves in the line of fire this morning. Alabama's Gary Palmer on those first terrifying moments.
I was about 20 yards from the shooter. We were taking batting practice. I was at shortstop. Scalise was at second, and Trent Kelly was at third. And I heard a gunshot, and I yelled at Trent, "That's a gunshot." I think the guy, initial shot, he was trying to hit Trent, and he missed it. And Trent yelled "shooter," and we all broke for the first base side of the field to get off the field. And he fired 2 more times, and I saw Scalise go down.
I'm joined now by Michael Balboni, former Homeland Security Advisor for the state of New York, and you bring an interesting perspective to this because of your experience.
Yeah, so I'm actually counsel to the National Association of Sergeant of Arms around the nation for all the different state capitals. We talk oftentimes about this type of a situation when you have a threat against individual members of the legislative body. How do you respond? What are the things that you try to do? In my former career, I've actually worked with the State Police Protective Unit for the governor. And what do you do to try to eliminate these threats and protect them? Here is one of the nightmarish scenarios. But for the Capitol Police being there at this time, that could have gone on for a very long time because members aren't armed at a baseball game.
Yeah, and the shooter, I am expecting, did not expect that he would face return fire because the Capitol Hill officers who were there apparently were plain clothed.
Right, and a lot of things that we take for granted, you know, the ability to get out into the public, as the former Speaker Newt Gingrich talked about, that's our democracy. You have to have that interaction between our representatives and the people. So to think that you could actually put everybody in an envelope outside of the Capitol and their offices, very hard.
Yeah, you've got 535 members of Congress. You can't hire 535 Capitol Police to guard each one of them 8 hours a day and then 2 more for the other 16.
What's happening now really is that people are taking a look at the Capitol Police and the Sergeant of Arms in our nation's capital. They're concerned about copycats. They're concerned about what the public schedule is. How did this guy know that this was a practice that was going on? They're going to kind of scrub those schedules to see, are there other events that could provide a target as well? And you say, well, wait a minute, you can't do that forever. No, you can't, but in the current situation, you're going to have to take a step back and take a look at what the vulnerabilities are right now.
Well, you know, every one of these events kind of changes the learning curve. Gabby Giffords obviously was shot at a congressional event. What are the changes that will take place going forward because of this? I mean, they're going to look for those public events?
Well, I think that what is so unique about this, obviously, is that as with the Gabby Giffords situation, as with George Wallace's assassination, you have an individual that's targeted. You don't have a group of individuals, particularly on a partisan basis. Now, as again, people have pointed out, the guy was obviously deranged. But nonetheless, do these gatherings provide another vulnerability, another target for individuals? Are there ways that you can lessen? As you and I have talked about so many times, John, you don't eliminate the risk, you manage it. And that's really what you're going through right now.
Are we? I mean, we've heard a little bit about the suspect, and I've seen some of the postings on his Facebook page. Suspect, the gunman who is now dead. Are we going to hear in the days ahead that there were warnings that he said, "Man, I'd like to go to Washington and shoot all those guys," that kind of thing?
So already you're seeing some of his Facebook posts. You're seeing the letters to the editor. You're seeing you're developing a profile of this individual. And there are going to be statements that are going to jump out, like, you know, let's destroy the Republicans and their whatever, you know, that partisan basis. Those are the rantings. And again, just as with terrorism generally, it's so difficult to be able to determine when someone's actually going to do something or they're just saying something.
He was a big Bernie Sanders supporter and volunteer, and hats off to Senator Sanders for going to the Senate floor and absolutely deploring the conduct that his former campaign volunteer perpetrated this morning on so many members of Congress and their staffs. Michael Balboni. Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
Heather.
Breaking news for you, this Fox News alert. We want to take you out to San Francisco. This is just outside of the downtown area where apparently a workplace shooting has happened. And we can tell you that USA Today, and USA Today only apparently at this time, is saying that police have an unidentified person in custody following this shooting that happened at a UPS facility in San Francisco's Potrero Hill neighborhood. Police have sealed off the streets in the area. You can see this live shot right now. It took place around 9 a.m. local time. We can tell you that San Francisco General Hospital is located about a mile from the city. They are reporting that they have received multiple victims. We're told that they were told to expect as many as 6, including the suspect. At the hospital, you can see the doctors were lined up outside the entrance to the emergency room waiting for the injured. This is a very large facility, this UPS processing facility. And as we said, it's about 2 miles south of the downtown area. The multi-story building clearly visible along Highway 101, if you're familiar with that area. According to other reports, the gunman opened fire on the 3rd floor of the building. KCBS radio reporting that the shooter, a male believed to be a UPS driver, was taken into custody and was being transported to the hospital. So that now being reported by 2 news outlets. We will continue to follow this story as it develops. Once again, this what is believed to be a workplace shooting happening in San Francisco right now. John?
And still to come on happening now, we are waiting for an update on the condition of Congressman Steve Scalise, who is reportedly stable at a D.C. hospital. We don't know whether the surgery on him is finished or not. We will talk to a trauma surgeon about treating that kind of gunshot wound as we get more information on today's attack in Virginia.
I couldn't hear the gunman. I heard the police saying to the gunman, I don't know if it was like, get down or put your gun down. And then I heard some of the players saying, just shoot him. Because, like, they shot one of his buddies and they were shooting at them and shooting off.
Sarah is a 5th grade teacher. When it comes to molding young minds, nobody does it better. She also builds her own fighting robots. Destroy. But when it comes to mortgages, she's less confident. Fortunately for Sarah, there's Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. It's simple, so she can understand the details and be sure she's getting the right mortgage. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently.
Home is where you should always fit in. So trust Angie's List to help find top-rated pros for quality work, because your home is where our heart is.
Depression is a tangle of multiple symptoms. That's why there's Trintellix, a prescription medication for depression. Trintellix may help you take a step forward in improving your depression. Tell your healthcare professional right away if your depression worsens or you have unusual changes in mood, behavior, or thoughts of suicide. Antidepressants can increase these in children, teens, and young adults. Do not take with MAOIs. Tell your healthcare professional about your medications, including migraine, psychiatric, and depression medications, to avoid a potentially life-threatening condition. Increased risk of bleeding or bruising may occur, especially if taken with NSAID pain relievers, aspirin, or blood thinners. Manic episodes or vision problems may occur in some people. May cause low sodium levels. The most common side effects were nausea, constipation, and vomiting. Trintellix had no significant impact on weight in clinical trials. Ask your healthcare professional about Trintellix.
Hi, I'm William Devane. You've heard me talk about how smart it is to buy silver. Well, there's a growing demand for silver around the world, and right now silver is very affordable with room to grow in value. So don't miss out. I buy my silver from Rosalind Capital. Buying silver has been an important way to accumulate wealth for thousands of years, and a great way to start investing. There are silver coins, silver bars, and even full bags of silver. And Rosalind has them all. And with Rosalind, what you order is what you get. No gimmicks, no nonsense, no hassle. I like that, and so will you. So when it comes to buying gold or silver, call Rosalind Capital.
Call now and get a free gold kit, including coins only available from Rosalind Capital, a free silver kit, and a free IRA kit. Call 800-630-8900, 800-630-8900, 800-630-8900.
Fox News alert President Trump letting us know that the House Majority Whip is in stable condition after today's shooting. Congressman Scalise underwent surgery at MedStar Hospital in Washington. Another victim at the same hospital is also in stable condition, so that's good news. Two other gunshot victims are at George Washington University Hospital, and you can see the scene there right now. So let's bring in Dr. Kelly Powers, who is a surgeon at Stanford Hospital and is familiar with gunshot wounds. You've worked at Washington's MedStar Hospital as well. So tell us about the facility where they are working on Congressman Scalise right now.
Sure, and great to be here, Heather. Nice to see you. Unfortunately, these circumstances not so great. So I did my fellowship at a MedStar, primarily at a Georgetown University Hospital, but did spend some time at Washington Hospital Center. And he could not be at a better place. I mean, and I honestly mean that from the heart. It is a #1 trauma center, well known for both wound care, orthopedic surgery, and podiatric surgery, as he has an injury to his lower extremity.
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Sure.
Since they specify in that area of expertise, he was shot in the hip. Tell us about the danger of that.
Yeah, that's what we know. So the reason that the hip or the upper thigh is so dangerous is because of a specific anatomical lesson here, femoral artery, or the inguinal artery as well. Both those major arteries they feed the lower extremity oxygenated blood. So if those are compromised, that could lead to, biggest issue, bleeding. So hypovolemic shock is what we call it in medical terminology.
And you probably heard the reports how he was lying out in the middle of the baseball field trying to drag himself to safety, and there was just this line of blood trailing behind him, and no one could get to him because the shooting was still happening at the time.
Yeah, and I have to say he's lucky in the sense that Representative Brad Wenstrup, who is actually the same specialist as I am, a podiatric surgeon, was there on the scene, and he was quick-witted and knew that the most important danger was the loss of blood. So he quickly took, from what I was told, his belt off of Representative Scalise and tied it around his thigh, stopping the blood flow, or at least impeding some of it, and probably saving his life. I mean, if he didn't do that, I don't know if we'd be having the same conversation right now.
When he was describing what he was doing earlier today, he said that, you know, one of the first things he did was obviously try to stop the blood, and that he was looking for the entry wound and the exit wound.
Yeah, so we call that a sweep. And during trauma, when someone comes in with a gunshot wound, regardless of where it is, we want to see if we could find an entry and then also an exit. That if we see the exit, and even if there's some shrapnel or bullets on the floor, the ground, would tell us, you know, it's not still in the body cavity. Sometimes the shrapnel does stay in the body cavity. And, you know, there's some debate of taking it out, but basically the kind of school of thought now is to, if it is not near a neurovascular structure and impeding a direct artery or a vascular structure and compromising tissue, then sometimes it's best to leave it in.
Well, we do know that he is in stable condition right now, so that's good news. We also know that these two Capitol Police officers that were there as extra protection for him, they just happened to be there because he's allowed to have that. One of those officers is in the same hospital with him and was shot in the foot.
Yeah, you know, again, unfortunate circumstance, but lucky to have a level 1 trauma center, MedStar, great podiatric surgery team. I've worked with them directly, you know those guys. I mean, she could not be in better hands.
Yeah, so timing and a lot of luck with a lot of those folks and their experience who were there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on,
Appreciate the insight. John?
So Republican lawmakers practicing for a friendly charity baseball game against their Democratic colleagues dive for cover this morning as shots ring out on the field. In spite of all the partisanship, our government is coming together when it matters most. We'll speak with one lawmaker about the mood on Capitol Hill after the horrifying attack on his colleagues.
We're grateful for all those who stepped in to help.
I join with the majority leader in offering our prayers for those who are injured. And I was absolutely shaken by the news of a shooting early this morning at the baseball field in Alexandria, where many of my friends and colleagues were practicing.
I would like to take a moment to address my fellow veterans, because I know there are so many of you who have served your country honorably, whether it's 2 years, 4 years, or 32 years like myself. One of the benefits that we as a country give you as a veteran is your eligibility for a VA loan. Not 80%, but 100% the value of your home, and that's what you can get at New Day USA.
Go to newdayusa.com or call 1-855-707-5775. It's a new day for veterans who want to refinance.
That's me.
The New Day 100 VA loan lets you refinance your mortgages, consolidate your credit card debt, get cash, and lower your payments an average of $640 a month. New Day will even pay for your appraisal.
That's me.
As a vet, you've earned the right to apply for a home loan that's VA guaranteed. For veterans who want to refinance, that can mean a lot.
That's me.
Call New Day USA now, 1-855-707-5775.
Hi, I'm Barry Sloan with NewTek, your business solutions company. Does your business need money? Whether you need $10,000 or $10 million, you can count on NewTek, the nation's largest non-bank government-guaranteed lender. NewTek can help your business expand and grow. With a simple phone interview, we can pre-qualify you in just 48 hours. And with rates as low as 6%, you can see why so many businesses turn to NewTek. To see how easy getting a loan can be, contact NewTek, your business solutions company, today.
Men's Warehouse helps you celebrate the special men in your life with gifts like dress shirts, 3 for $99, shorts and t-shirts all 50% off. Plus, buy one, get one free on more. Men's Warehouse.
USAA gives me the peace of mind and the security just like the Marines did.
The process through USAA is so effortless that you feel like you're a part of the family.
I love that I can pass a membership to my children. We're the Williams family and we're USAA members for life.
The shooting, the motive, the aftermath. Martha gets you live breaking updates on the story. Then, hear from witnesses on the scene on Tucker Carlson Tonight.
We understand the value of hard work. We know great things don't happen overnight. We get up earlier. We work harder. Because connecting you to what matters to us. That's who we are. Spectrum, redefining what a cable company can be.
You're searching for something, like the perfect deal on the perfect hotel. So wouldn't it be perfect if there was a single site where you could find the right hotel for you at the best price? There is. Because TripAdvisor now compares prices from over 200 booking sites to save you up to 30% on the hotel you want. Trust this bird's words. TripAdvisor, the latest reviews, the lowest prices.
I want to take you back live to the scene in San Francisco at a UPS facility where there has been a workplace-involved shooting. UPS now telling the Associated Press that 4 people have been injured and taken to hospitals in the San Francisco area, and that the shooter was, in fact, an employee. We also need to tell you, if you are in that area, that police are still asking people to stay away for safety purposes. This is specifically in the Potrero Hill neighborhood. The Potrero Hill neighborhood, which is about 2.5 miles downtown, outside of downtown San Francisco. So once again, the shooting suspect was an employee and 4 people injured. That's what we know right now.
A Fox News alert. Congressman Steve Scalise is now out of surgery and in stable condition. Staffer Zach Barth and the 2 Capitol Hill police officers who were also injured are all expected to recover. The shooter, identified as James Hodgkinson, died from his injuries. Florida Representative Ron DeSantis spoke to Fox and Friends earlier today, sharing some information that suggests the shooting was politically motivated.
The game's tomorrow night, and I actually left a little early, probably about a couple minutes before this all happened, and as I was getting into the car with one of my colleagues, Jeff Duncan, there was a guy that walked up to us that was asking whether it was Republicans or Democrats out there, and it was just a little odd, and then he kind of walked towards the area where all this happened.
Joining me now, Congressman Joe Crowley of New York. He's the chairman of the House Democratic Caucus. But this is a day when you don't wear blue labels or red labels on Capitol Hill, do you, Congressman?
No, you certainly don't. This attack today, this horrific attack that involved my colleague Steve Scalise, another former staffer, as well as the 2 police officers, was an attack upon all of us, an attack upon the institution. The House representatives of the American people were attacked today.
And you've described the House as a family. I mean, it's a big family and it's a fractious one, but you call it a family.
Yeah, I think, that oftentimes people have a misinterpretation. We disagree, as families disagree from time to time. We don't agree on everything. And we have the opportunity to debate, and sometimes that debate does get out of hand. Sometimes we may say some things that we come to regret. But it makes us no less a family all the same. And Steve and I are friendly. He's a member of the House Republican leadership, on the House Democratic leadership. Our paths cross often, and it's always pleasant and hello. And again, we may not agree at just about anything, but we are pleasant to each other. And I think that's something the American people need to understand.
And that's the terrible irony here. I mean, this was in preparation for the congressional baseball game, which is kind of a long revered institution where both sides, fight against one another, but for a very good cause.
And it's always done, John, in the best of spirit. We tease each other. We don't necessarily practice. We don't practice at all in the same field. And that's for a reason. We have our little secret weapons and they have theirs. They don't want us to know about how they're training. But it's all for a good cause, for charity, for the Boys and Girls Club of D.C., for the literacy program here in the Capital Region, that both Democrats and Republicans are committed to. And this one game a year that's been going on for the better part of a century now has become a hallmark of the year. And there's something that members on both sides look forward to, and doing it in camaraderie, doing for the best of reasons to help people who have less than we do.
Well, we hope it's certainly a moment when members of both parties in the Capitol can, as they already have, sort of link arms and support one another. But what do you say to the viewers out there who might be taking the political rhetoric a little too literally these days?
Well, one thing I would say to them is that when I had the opportunity today, I walked up to my good friend Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House. We were both elected the same year. And I said, Paul, you hit it out of the park. You hit all the right chords. You did a great job. You did us all proud. That's one Democrat speaking to the Republican leader of the House, the Speaker of the House. And I said it with sincerity. I meant it sincerely and with passion. I think Paul did a good job. My constituents And all the constituency throughout this great country needs to know that we're first Americans. We're all Americans first.
Yes.
An attack upon one is an attack upon all of us. And that's how we're taking this today. Democrats, Republicans, and all political persuasions unite here today in opposition to this attack and say it was disgusting, despicable, no matter what the political cause, never take violence into action.
Good advice. Let's hope we can all take that to heart. Congressman Joe Crowley, Democrat of New York, and the head of the Democratic caucus in the House.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Well, lawmakers offer prayers for their colleagues and praise for the Capitol Police after the attack at the ball field. Congressman Steve Scalise and 3 other victims now recovering from their injuries as they get strong support from the president.
America is praying for you, and America is praying for all of the victims of this terrible shooting. I spoke with Steve's wife, Jennifer, and I pledged to her our full and absolute support.
Washington's out of control, the debt out of control. Nothing in that story is going to change, so you have to.
The U.S. debt is increasing an average of nearly $2.4 billion every day.
This is an unsustainable practice. It's going to end, but when it does, it's going to end very rapidly and very destructively.
Call 1-800-654-1010 for this exclusive report, The Screaming Fundamentals for Owning Gold.
We're about to enter the greatest financial reset in history. So now is the time for people to invest in hard assets, to get their plan together, and to really understand the context behind what's about to happen.
Call Lear Capital for your free report and discover how hard assets like gold and silver can help protect your savings. Plus, find out how you can get up to $500 in free gold or silver.
It can't go on forever. And when it bursts, it's going to be the most destructive bubble in all of human history.
This offer ends soon. Call 1-800-654-1010. 1-800-654-1010.
When you have something you love, you want to protect it. At LegalZoom, our network of attorneys can help you every step of the way with an estate plan including wills or a living trust that grows along with you and your family. LegalZoom. Legal help is here.
You don't let anything keep you sidelined. That's why you drink Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals. For the strength and energy to get back to doing what you love. Ensure. Always be you.
What she's listening to right now is taking her to a place this train never could. And now she's hanging on every word until the story consumes her. That is the power of a great performance.
I'm Chris, and I lost 120 pounds on Nutrisystem.
Listen up, guys. Want to shed a few pounds? Got a beer belly going on? Can't fit into your pants? Then you need Nutrisystem for men.
I'm Essex, and I lost 43 pounds on Nutrisystem.
I'm Trevor. I lost 60 pounds on Nutrisystem.
Lose 15 pounds and 7 inches in your first month. Lose weight fast. Money back guarantee. Real guys, real results.
I'm Michael, and I lost 50 pounds on Nutrisystem.
Put down the pie, pick up the phone, and get with the program today. Get 1 week of all new Crush bars free and 1 week of Turbo Shakes free.
The food was delicious.
If you're like me and you like to eat, this is what you get to do.
This is perfect for men, especially guys who don't want to cook.
So get off the couch, call or go online in the next 2 minutes, and we'll even throw in FedEx shipping. Free! Lose 15 pounds and 7 inches in your first month.
It's not that hard. You eat the food, you lose the weight.
Go online or call 888-605-SIZE to get Nutrisystem for Men with bars and shakes free.
You did it. You were disciplined, you saved your money, and you have a retirement nest egg. But what do you do now? It doesn't have to be complicated. The smart investor has their money protected against market losses. Up with the market and never down. Forwards with their money and never backwards. And it's simple. Sound attractive? Get your investor's kit, and I'll explain on the DVD exactly how it works, and you decide if it's right for you.
Get your investor's kit. Call 800-557-7379 or tyjyoung.net.
A Fox News alert on a terrifying day just across the Potomac from Washington. Congressman Steve Scalise recovering, thank goodness, after undergoing surgery after he and 3 others were shot. A man opened fire at a ballpark in Alexandria, Virginia. That's where Congressman Scalise and other lawmakers gathered to practice for tomorrow's congressional charity baseball game. That suspect has now died of his injuries after a shootout with police. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill coming together today to show support for their colleagues. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel live for us on Capitol Hill with more. Mike?
Well, Heather, good afternoon. House members and senators are stunned at this hour. You can still see it on their faces. Just afternoon, House Speaker Paul Ryan addressed the entire House of Representatives and called on members to come together.
We are united. We are united in our shock. We are united in our anguish. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
Under the Capitol dome, House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi echoed a bipartisan tone, saying she identified with the remarks of the Speaker. Pelosi then called for unity.
We are not one caucus or the other in this House today, but we speak for each other in saying that we send our thoughts and prayers to our colleague, Steve Scalise.
This annual congressional baseball event raises hundreds of thousands of dollars for local boys and girls clubs here in the Washington, D.C. area, also for a local literacy cause. GOP Whip Steve Scalise loves playing in the event. We caught up with him at practice several years ago, and he typically wears his LSU Tigers baseball pants and is a regular at second base for the GOP team. His lawmaker teammates are still stunned.
This political rhetoric and political discourse that has led to hate has led to gunfire. I never thought I'd go to baseball practice for charity and have to dodge bullets.
All are praising the heroism of Capitol Police and the local first responders. The question is, or the big concern is, if Scalise, a member of the GOP leadership team, had not been there, there would not be any security, and the concern would be there could have been a massacre. Heather?
But thank goodness there wasn't. Mike Emanuel live for us. Thank you.
It's really unfortunate, the damage that was done, but I think what we saw today again was people pulling together, and hopefully what comes out of this is a greater sense of unity and a recognition that, you know, we may be Republicans and Democrats, but we're all Americans, and we need to come together and we need to work together and try and solve our problems in a way that maintains civility and doesn't lead to these senseless acts of violence.
Republican Senator John Thune of South Dakota during our first hour, reinforcing the fact that despite the political climate, Americans have to work together, and violence should not be the solution. Joining us now, Michelle Jawando, Vice President of Legal Action for the Center for American Progress and former General Counsel and Senior Advisor to Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Dave Hoppe is also with us, former Chief of Staff to Speaker of the House Paul Ryan. I want to play a little bit more of what your former boss, Dave, had to say, as well as Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi when they spoke on the House floor right around noon today, Eastern Time. Listen.
I ask each of you to join me to resolve to come together, to lift each other up, and to show the country, to show the world that we are one house, the people's house, united in our humanity. It is that humanity which will win the day, and it always will.
I prayed for Barack Obama, and now I continue to pray for him, and I pray for Donald Trump, that his presidency will be successful and that his family will be safe, because it is about family.
The question, I guess, Dave, is how long can this spirit of unity that has temporarily overtaken Capitol Hill, how long can it last?
Well, both very good statements, and there can be differences in politics without being so disagreeable and taking language to a point where people are really attacking each other's motives. And that can happen, and that should happen, and I think this will help with that. Do you expect this to last 3 months, 6 months, 8 months? No, but the question is, can we start having debates that are debates about policy? I thought that Senator Scott this morning, in one of the statements he made, was very eloquent about talking about how people can get together. They still have bipartisan prayer groups on the Hill. That's an essential thing. It's very important. Those are the types of things which allow people to see each other as individuals, as people who share goals, but maybe not the same political ideas. And that's an important part of it. So to the degree degree more of that goes on and that there is more working back and forth and the language calms down a little bit, I think it will help over time. But I can't predict how long it will go on. I think it will have an effect, and a good effect, for a while, and maybe start some people thinking about, let's debate on policy, but let's keep things a little cooler, and let's look for where we can find ways to work together.
Give us your perspective, Michelle. You've worked on Capitol Hill. Does this horrible event, does it possibly have a silver lining? Could it, in fact, cool down some of the rhetoric?
Without question, I think this gives us a moment to reflect on where we've been as a country, the language and the way that we're interacting with one another. My former boss, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, is co-captain of actually the women's congressional baseball team. And next week is their game, next week Wednesday, where they raise funds for young cancer survivors. And as a congressional staffer, I've worked on the House and the Senate side. I just think about those moments of going to the game and you're there with your Republican colleagues and your Democratic colleagues, and it truly is a moment of bipartisanship. But after that game, what we found is that the senator was able to work with her colleagues like former Senator Ayotte and others to move forward on legislation. And so these moments are so important because they both develop relationships, the old kind of relationships that we used to see on Capitol Hill, where you can coordinate and work with members, but it also fosters a type of respect for one another in the sense of the word, of how you can work together as colleagues, as friends, and on the baseball field working together to get that win.
Of course, it was then Congresswoman Gabby Giffords who famously became such a victim of this terrible kind of hatred and crime. She released a statement saying it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, nor if you're a senator or a representative, nor a staffer or a sworn officer. If you serve the institution of Congress, you are connected to your colleagues, current and former, by a shared sense of service to ideals far greater than yourself. This shooting is an attack on all who serve and all who participate in our democracy. If only the shooter had understood that before he opened fire, Dave. How do you get that message out to the broader public?
Well, in most of these cases, you have somebody who obviously has some sort of a significant mental problem. But one thing you can do, I think, is start talking, once again, talking in ways that lower the temperature. And we see it on, whether it's on Twitter or you see it on Facebook or many of the different ways we have of communicating with each other. People tend to do it almost as if they don't act like there's another person on the other end. The House and the Senate are very human institutions when you get right down to it. And the individuals there can work together and often do work together more times than people see. But we have to, throughout society, I think, and it's not just on the political side, but throughout society, look to cool things off just a little and act like there's somebody else, another human being on the other end of the line. Once again, you can disagree, you just don't have to be disagreeable in doing so, and you can find ways to work together if you just think of them as another human being, which we don't do sometimes now, I'm afraid.
Government of the people, by the people, for the people. Michelle Jawando and Dave Hoppe, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Fearful for their lives on a baseball field. Today's attack in Virginia shows that people can be targeted anywhere, but public figures may be especially vulnerable. Why our next guest says keeping our nation's leaders safe is similar to tracking terrorism all around the world, as we continue to hear from lawmakers who were caught in the middle of the attack and are putting on a very brave face.
This is a charity baseball game. We've played it for almost 100 years. It's for a very good cause. I can only speak for myself, but I hope we continue the game. It's what, in some ways, what democracy is all about.